Hello and welcome to the Punter, the show that likes to keep you up to date with all the sports betting action across the sporting calendar. On today's show, it is day 13 of the Olympics and we'll be talking athletics, a couple of crucial and blue ribbon finals with gold medals up for grabs a little bit later on tonight. We'll be talking football as well. We'll be taking a look at the Scottish divisions, the Premier League and Divisions 1, 2 and 3. Plus, we'll be discussing transfer speculation concerning three key players and where they might be playing in the 12-13 Premier League campaign. I'm pleased to say that Mark Young of William Hill is with me. Mark, a very good evening to you. We've got to talk Olympics first of all. Obviously, Usain Bolt in action a little bit later on tonight against Johan Blake. Just generally on the Olympics, has it been a good one for Hill so far? We've seen many short price favourites go in. We've seen Team GB so far have a fantastic Olympics. Has that been good or bad for you?
I would say it's been a mixed bag, really. Like, the biggest punt we've probably had is on Bolt in the 100 metres, and that's very short price, like you said. With all the short prices coming in, it's not really making a huge amount of difference to us. We probably thought there might be a bit more interest, but I think people are just enjoying learning these new sports at the moment.
Do you think punters are missing a trick a little bit when it comes to some of the Team GB athletes? Because we're racking up the goals. We've got back on track again today. Should we be backing some of these shorter price favourites that are wearing Team GB colours? Or, as you say, are punters just enjoying the action and not getting the hard earned down?
Well, I think people, like if I say about football, for example, people like to think they've got knowledge about it. But when you go into cycling, for example, some people might not think they've got that knowledge. But I think that plays a bit of a part. But generally, like I said, I think it's just people enjoying the Olympics. I think we might see a bit of money on Bolt tonight, but other than that, I don't really know.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We're going to talk 200 metres first of all because Bolt, of course, is the short price favourite. But as we know, Johan Blake has clocked some very fast times this year. I guess the market has changed since what's happened with the 100 metres, Mark.
Yeah, well, Bolt's now 1-6 with us to win, and that's extremely short for a final, but at the same time, it's Bolt. You expect it. But with people saying he came into the Olympics out of shape, I'd like to be that out of shape, to be honest. But Blake will probably give him a run for his money, but with them both strolling through to the final. But it'll be an interesting race, definitely.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think there are one or two punters that want to back Blake. There's no doubt about it, but Bolt is the favourite. Let's get the market, and let's hear from Chris Graham on the 200 metres.
How you doing, Dan?
Good.
Good, nice one. Me too. Before we kick off with specific odds, I should just say the oddest bet of the day, and the one that made me gasp, was one punter walked into a Ladbroke shop in Peterborough and placed a £45,000 bet this morning that would be no world record tonight in this race at 4-11. That's what you call
45 grand.
£45,000 odds of 4-11. That would be no world record in this race. That's what you call brave punting.
No doubt about that.
Quite a boring bet, though.
It's odds on, isn't it? Is it about 2-5 no world record?
Yeah, 4-11.
4-11, sorry.
Yeah.
Crikey.
So, yeah, but in terms of this particular race, it's a two-horse race. Let's be honest, isn't it? Well, the bookmakers reckon it's a one-horse race. I think it's a two-horse race. Usain Bolt 1-6, Johan Blake here at 72. You've got Wallace Spearman, the American, at 51, and Christophe Lemaitre, the fastest Caucasian ever, at 66-1. For me, there's only one bet in this particular market. You've just got to back Johan Blake. I ain't saying he's going to win. What I'm saying is the price is wrong. You can actually get 4-1 in a place. The price for me is just wrong. This guy was the fastest at 200 metres in 2011. He's the fastest at 200 metres in 2012. He's beaten Usain Bolt in the Jamaican trials. He's racked up wins against Usain Bolt, and this is his preferred event, the 200 metres, not the 100 metres. This is his preferred event. So for me, when you add that into the cauldron, into the spice, into the soup bowl, Johan Blake, for me, is definitely the shout here at 72. It's too big. I ain't saying he's going to win, guys, but what I am saying is that price is too big. Tuck in.
6 is on Bolt. Blake is the second favourite at 7-2. Chris, if I pushed you for a medalist, obviously if we're saying that the two Jamaicans there are going to get the top two, the gold and silver, can we see anybody at a value price to get the bronze?
I like Christophe Lemaitre. I tipped him up on Monday. He's the European champion. He got bronze in the 2011 World Championships at Daegu last year. Young runner who actually posted a better time at his particular age than Bolt and Blake did. So for me, Dan, Christophe Lemaitre here, 6-6 to win the race. He ain't going to win the race, but he's around 5-2 to get bronze or without Bolt and Blake. And for me, that's the shout.
So you can bet without. Just check out that market as well. Obviously, if you don't want to take the short price, the 6 is on about Bolt. When we get towards kick-off time, so to speak, for that 200 metres, do you think Punter's desperate for a bet? The 5 or 10 merchants will think, look, I'm going to have a go at Blake here simply because he's the bigger price. I don't want to back a 6 is on shot.
Oh yeah, like you said earlier, people want to back Blake, but at the same time they're backing against Bolt. So it's kind of a catch-22. But I agree. I think Blake is a big price. If there's going to be an upset, it will be in this event, and it will be Blake that upsets Bolt. But other than that, 1-6 for Bolt says it all, really.
Does indeed. We've got a short price favourite for the 200 metres. We've got a shorter price favourite when it comes to the 800 metres. We've got the final of the 800 as well this evening. And this is David Rudisha, who's what sort of price, Mark?
He's 1-12, which for an 800 metre final at the Olympics is really, really short. So if you think Bolt's a dead cert, he must be even more so.
I mean, I guess generally the short prices are putting punters off. I mean, we see short prices week in, week out in the football, and they like to have accumulators, but maybe the casual punter doesn't realise you could have a roll-up on these. And if you're rolling up 1-14 and 1-6 shots, you're still not going to get close to even money anytime soon, are you? It's difficult for punters.
It is difficult because they're not, like I said, they're not really all on one list. Whereas if you've got the whole weekend's football on one list, they'll just tick them off. They'll be happy ticking them off. And then whatever it says at the bottom of their coupon, they're happy. But if they see a 1-12 and a 1-6, they're not necessarily going to put their £10 on it.
Let's get the latest prices, get some thoughts on this. So on the 800 metres, we've got an even shorter price favourite here. Chris, can you spy any value for us?
I can, I always can, Dan. However long it takes me, I will find value in a specific market, and I've been working hard on this one this afternoon. One of the dead certs Olympics, people have said, David Rudisha, fantastic athlete, won the World Championships last year, and his best time this year is a 1.5 seconds faster than anyone else. So he's a dominant runner. He will win, like Alison Felix did last night at very short odds at the 200 metres. 1-12 here. It's probably actually a fair price. What can we find here that might shake up the order a wee bit? Well, this Amos here, 40-1 from Botswana. He's got a shout here definitely to become the first ever medalist in Botswana's history to win. He's a young guy. He's only 18, but he's got a real chance of getting a medal tonight. And of course, Andrew Zage here at 100-1. British runner. Surprised that he qualified for the final, but he did, and he did really well in his semi-final, finishing second to Rudisha, of course. A lot of people think he's got a shout tonight, definitely. One name that's not even on this list, which is taking me aback, is Daniel Solomon. Daniel Solomon, a man that I looked at today. He's improved his personal best by over a second since the US trials in June. The fact he's not on this list is because the range of opinion on him is so vast. In some places, 33-1 to win the race. In some places, 150-1 on this particular list as well. He's 8-1 to win a medal. I think that's a shout. He's as short as 72 in some markets, 8-1 in others. Daniel Solomon, he's definitely got a shout. 151. He's improved his PB by over a second since the US trials in June. He's on the up and hopefully can deliver for us tonight.
8-1 if you think that he can get a medal, could be a value play. Also, incidentally, 6-1 or thereabouts to claim a medal in the 800 metres. Let's stick with the Olympics for now, but we're going to take you away from the athletics stadium to talk about Tom Daley. Obviously, a lot of interest in when it comes to the diving. This time it's the individual, not the synchronised, but he's got stiff opposition here. Are punters backing Tom Daley? What's your view on the diving?
Again, it's not necessarily the most popular of markets. But if anyone's going to back someone in this, it's Tom Daley because he's a recognisable name. But if you look at the favourite, it's another short price, Kibo at 2-5. Tom Daley in the run-up to the Olympics referred to him as a robot. So if the second favourite's calling the first favourite a robot, you pretty much got to be listening to him, really, haven't you? Yeah,
it's a difficult one, isn't it? He's the world champion as well. He's another short price favourite. But we've seen Tom Daley claim world championship glory before, prior to Kibo's win in 2011. Chris Graham, again, we're looking for value here because we've got a short price favourite. What's your view on the 10-metre individual diving, featuring, of course, our very own Tom Daley?
Yeah, he got no chance. Tom Daly's got no chance. I'm definitely.
Don't sit on the fence, Chris.
No, I never do, Dan. I never do. And for me, he doesn't have a chance here. I spent a good hour looking at this market about 2 weeks ago. Actually, it was a Thursday night. So, and I come to the conclusion that Tom Daly doesn't. It's too short. It's the patriotic price, 4-1. 5th in the World Championships last year. Very indifferent season this year. Of course, there's a lot of personal problems, and for that, I've got complete sympathy for the guy. 4-1, second favourite. For me, it's too short. Kibo here, 2-5. It's getting to be the right price now, but believe you me, it was 4-6 2 weeks ago when I got involved. I thought it was a great price. This guy is the dominant diver in this particular event. Won the World Championships easy last year. I think it was 25 perfect tens at the event last year. He's the absolute dominant diver. It deserves to be that price. He's even shorter, which is fair for me. But a couple of other names that I mentioned. David Bodilla here at 12-1, second in the World Championships last year. Definitely got as much chance as Tom Daly, but getting 3 times the price. And a man who's not even on the list again. But that's what I give you. I give you massive prices. A guy called Sascha Klein. He's 40-1. He's German. He's vast experience. He's won 16 medals in all sorts of these big competitions in diving. He was 3rd in the World Championships last year. He's got a great record. 3rd in the World Championships last year. He was placed again in 2009. He's a consistent, experienced diver who incredibly is 40-1. To win this. Take a look at him for finishing in the medal places. It's 10 times the price of Tom Daly, and for me, that's absolutely nuts. Sascha Klein for me, 40-1. Get on.
Sascha Klein 40-1. We're betting without as well. So just check out the various different markets that you can find for the diving. Obviously, with all these short price favourites that we've been talking about, there are always different ways to get involved. Check out all the prices for the diving and indeed the athletics finals that come up a little bit later on. Stick with us though for now, because we've got much more coming up on the show. We're going to be talking transfer targets pretty soon. We're also going to be delving into Europa League qualifiers. Liverpool, of course, in action against Cromwell. Plus, next, we're talking Scottish football. The SPL is underway. The lower leagues start this weekend, and we're going to get some expert opinion on that after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter as we endeavour to point you in the right direction across a whole host of sports. We've already talked Olympics. We're going to delve into football next up. And Scottish football, obviously, huge changes when it comes to the SPL that got underway last weekend. Mark Young with me of William Hill. Mark, is it going to affect turnover on outrights? Is it going to affect turnover week by week that Rangers are now in the 4th tier of Scottish football and Celtic look like they've got a solo for glory in the SPL?
I don't really think it's going to affect it week by week, because people just put Celtic and Rangers in their accumulators anyway. It would just be the money that we'd lose on the Old Firm games. Just got to have your fingers crossed that they play in the Cup. But the short prices they are to win the league, I'm sure a few people will be getting on that. But they are very short, but probably rightly so.
I'm going to say, have they been left alone generally when it comes to the outright betting for the SPL? Because if Celtic are 1-20, 1-25, no one, certainly with either cash or a debit account, is going to wait 8-9 months for the money at that sort of price, are they?
Yeah, and that's the reason why we'll go largely untouched. And it's been kind of under the radar that it started, to be honest, because of the Olympics. It's probably different up in Scotland, where we are the biggest bookmaker up there. We've taken some wagers on them, but not loads.
Let's get some expert opinion on all of the action north of the border. I'm pleased to say that Willie Duncan joins me on the phone. Willie, first of all, I've got to ask you this question. Surely Celtic are going to win the SPL. We've got to get it out of the way. They are 1-20, 1-25, something like that. I mean, it's impossible, isn't it, for them not to win?
No, I mean, I think Celtic should absolutely stroll to victory in the SPL this season. You know, I think even if Rangers had been allowed to stay in the Scottish Premier League, then I think, you know, Celtic probably would have been hot favourites due to the financial restrictions on the Ibrox club. But Celtic are absolutely nailed-on favourites, and I can't see anyone stopping them this year. Probably much more interesting, actually, is the betting without Celtic. You know, Dundee United 6-4, Hearts 2-1, Motherwell 6-1, and possibly a wee bit of value. Aberdeen at 8-1. They've bought quite wisely over the summer with Johnny Hayes coming in, Niall McGinn, and also Gary Naismith. So they've got quite an experienced squad now, and I think Aberdeen might have quite a good season. But as you say, Celtic to win the league, absolutely.
Let's get over to Chris Graham. Chris, I'm sure you've got your own view on this. Obviously, we're going to list the prices when it comes to winning the SPL. But as Willie's just said, there's plenty of other ways that you can get involved when it comes to the SPL outright. Not only, of course, betting without Celtic. Chris, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking on Celtic to actually win the league, it's extremely unlikely. The last time Celtic finished below a non-Old Firm side was 1995, in fact 94-95. They finished fourth that year behind Motherwell and Hibs. They only finished, I think, 15 points above relegation, so that just shows you how a disastrous season that was. But that was once, a very, very rare occurrence, and it ain't going to happen this year, that's for sure. Here we've got Celtic 1-25, of course, Dundee United 33-1. Peter Houston been there a few years now since he took over from Craig Levein. Things just working well, and they seem to be most people's picks to finish second in the league. It's a very settled squad, and Houston just doing very well over the last couple of years. Hearts 40-1, Scottish Cup winners, of course. A new manager now, though, and they've lost a lot of key players from me, so that would interest me for this particular market. And Motherwell 80-1 did so well last year, finishing second in the league, but they really were the surprise package, and it's unlikely that they'll replicate what they did last year. So for me, obviously Celtic, but Dundee United 33-1, I think deserve to be second favourites.
Willie, when it comes to the betting without, and just generally on the SPL, I'm presuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that second place in the SPL gets you a Champions League qualifying spot for the next campaign. So have the likes of Aberdeen, Dundee United thought this is a real opportunity for us maybe to grab that second place and get some European money? Has there been an influx of cash at one or more of the clubs, or are they still cutting their cloth accordingly when it comes to the money and they just cannot invest that much just in case it goes wrong?
Well, unfortunately for Scotland, because the Scottish clubs have performed so poorly in Europe over the last few years, actually this season second place will only be good enough for a Europa League playoff spot, and you won't actually get into the Champions League by finishing second. And subsequently, I think the clubs have cut their cloth accordingly, and there is no big spending hats. As Chris mentioned, Scottish Cup winners couldn't have finished the season better with that than with a 5-1 demolition of their local rivals Hibs in the Cup final. But they've lost Craig Beattie, they've lost Ian Black, they've lost Rudy Scatchell. That's probably a prime example of what's going on in Scottish football just now. Aberdeen, as I mentioned, are probably the club that have slightly bucked the trend because they seem to have brought in 3 or 4 useful signings. But the clubs are going to have to keep the purse strings fairly tight, just because of the situation in Scottish football at the moment, because there's been a bit of uncertainty over the summer with regards to TV money. That seems to have been largely sorted out. The clubs are going to keep things tight at the moment, and I think it's going to be quite an even contest actually, because no club is in a position to spend big money out with the Celtic really.
Well, 8-1 Aberdeen could be interesting, certainly. Let's rattle through the other divisions. Chris, let's start with having a look at the odds for Scottish League Division 1.
Yeah, Dunfermline head of betting here, I think very justified. Got relegated last season, finishing bottom of the SPL. They won this division in 2011, so a bit of a yo-yo club, Dunfermline. I think they deserve to be favourites here at 11-4. I think it's a fair shout. Falkirk finished well adrift in third place last season behind the top two who got promoted because of Rangers, of course. So Falkirk, no interest at 3-1. The team that I thought, apart from Dunfermline, might generate a wee bit of interest are Hamilton here at 7-1. A disappointing campaign last year, finishing, I think it was 5th or 6th in Division 1, but this is a side who finished 7th in the SPL just 2 years ago. So it's the same manager as well, Billy Reid in charge. So, they still remain, parts of that squad remain at Hamilton, and I think they're probably, for me, the value pick at 71. But with Jim Jeffries, wily old Jim Jeffries in charge at Dunfermline, they deserve to be 11-4 favourites for me in this market. 11-4 Dunfermline. Willie, what's your view on Division 1? Yeah, Dunfermline head of betting here, I think very justified. Got relegated last season, finishing bottom of the SPL. They won this division in 2011, so a bit of a yo-yo club, Dunfermline. I think they deserve to be 11-4 favourites for me in this market.
Yeah, I'm with Chris on this one actually. I think Dunfermline are justifiable favourites. I'm not usually one who likes to take a club who's just gone down a division. I sometimes think there's a transitional period, but as Chris mentioned, Dunfermline have kind of yo-yoed in the last couple of seasons, and I think they are more than capable of going back up. They've got a very experienced squad with guys like Paul Gallagher, Andy Kirk, Andy Barrowman, and Martin Burchell, who's a former Scottish internationalist, in their lineup. So I think they've got a good squad, and they've got a very, very experienced manager. Jim Jeffries knows how to work on a shoestring budget. I think he was a very good appointment for Dunfermline, and perhaps had Dunfermline moved more quickly to get Jeffries in last season, perhaps they might have even retained their SPL status. And I think that SPL status is something Dunfermline will be looking forward to again the season after this one, because I think at 11 before they represent excellent value to come back up.
That's Division 1. Willie, what about Division 2 in Scotland? What's your view here?
Well, I mean, you've got Ayr United as the favourites to win this, and Queen of the South as well. Both of those clubs relegated from Division 1, and I think they could have big seasons, particularly Queen of the South, actually, who have retained full-time status. And I know that Chris Graham will certainly be hoping that Queen of the South have a good season. But Arbroath would be my selection, actually. Arbroath around about 11 to 2, 6 to 1. They were very, very unfortunate last season, actually. They finished second in the league table, but didn't come up because they were beaten in the SSL playoffs by Dumbarton, who finished 5 points behind them, and Airdrie United, who finished 12 points behind them, and lost in the playoff final, were the club that was selected to come up to the first division, obviously with kind of a bit of a reshuffle with the Rangers situation. And Arbroath won 7-5, believe it or not, in the Ramsden's Cup first round just a couple of weeks ago. So I think they've certainly got goals in the side. And kind of listening to 6 to 1, I think they could represent excellent value in the second division.
Chris, how do you see the second division? Willie was alluding to your allegiance perhaps with Queen of the South there. How do you see it?
Absolutely. I think Willie makes total sense there. I thought Arbroath were the value pick, definitely. So unlucky to still be in this division after last year. Like Willie says, finished 12 points ahead of Airdrie, who did get promoted out to the playoffs. Ayr and Queen of the South, the relegated sides, top in the market here. We've talked about Arbroath, so I'll talk about Queen of the South. My team, I'm a Dumfries boy. They've had a great start to the season. First time they've been in this division for 10 years. They've got a new manager, Alan Magic Johnston, who's come in and retained a lot of the squad. They've retained full-time status, like Willie says, and they've had a great start to the season. They've played 7 games this year, a few pre-season friendlies, and won all 7. There's a real feel-good factor about the club in Dumfries at the moment, and I think they're definitely a shout here at 72. So I certainly couldn't put you off my beloved Queen of the South at 72.
And finally, Willie, and we've not got too much time left here, talk to me about Division 3, because obviously this is Rangers to lose, I presume. Where's the betting angle here?
One of the most interesting markets, I think, is Rangers' winning margin. A bet that stuck out for me actually was 6 to 4. You're getting for 31 points plus for Rangers, and 2 to 1 or thereabouts for 21 to 30 points. Now, I was looking at last season's league table, and I think in the end up it was won by 16 points by Alloa Athletic. Now, Alloa Athletic certainly aren't going to have the kind of squad that Ali McCoist is going to have at his disposal with the Rangers this season. So Rangers 31 points plus 6 to 4. I think that certainly is achievable for them if they field a strong squad every week, and I don't see why they wouldn't. I think they'll feel they have a big point to prove to Scottish football, and I think they can do it in some style. So I'd be interested in 6 to 4 on 31 points plus as a winning margin for Rangers in the third division.
6 to 4 to win by 31 points or more. Willie, fantastic insight. Thanks for joining us on the Punter, and we'll speak again soon, no doubt. Let's get to Chris and get your view, Chris, on Division 3. Obviously, Rangers short price favourites. Yeah,
again, I think Willie sums it up perfectly. Rangers very short price here, and there really is no chance. Despite that wee hiccup a couple of weeks ago when they went to extra time against Brecon in the Ramsden Cup, there's no chance of them failing here. They've got such a likes of Lee McCulloch, Kirk Broadfoot, solid Lee Wallace, Scottish internationals ex-Scottish internationals playing in the squad. There ain't any chance of anything bad going on here. So it's Rangers here at 1-20. If you want another bet, some firm knocked up 8-1 that they go unbeaten for the next 3 seasons, including cup competitions. I think that's probably the worst price I've ever seen in my life. So Rangers 1-20. And what's a pretty dead market for betting purposes.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Unfortunately, 1-20, but they should do it. But Willie Duncan reckons by 31 points or more, that could be the value. That trades at 6-4. Still more football chat to come. We're going to be talking transfer targets next, and we're also going to be previewing Liverpool's Europa League qualifier with FC Gobble. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter as we talk football with much on the agenda of the bookmakers and indeed punters. We're going to dive into transfer targets next. Lots to talk about Andy Carroll and Robbie Van Persie over the course of the last few weeks on the Punter. Now we're going to take a look at the futures of 3 other players. We're going to start with Daniel Agger. I'm pleased to say that Mark Young and William Hill is with me in the studio. Agger is a player coveted by Manchester City, so we are told. It will be interesting to see if City can prize him away from Liverpool and indeed if Liverpool lets him go. What I've been reading in the newspapers suggests that Brendan Rodgers is quite happy to let him go as long as the price is right. Are you surprised by that?
I'm completely surprised by that. I think it's ridiculous that they'd even entertain the idea of letting him go. I don't think at this late stage in the summer that they'll be able to get someone as good or near as good as Daniel Agger to replace him. Skirtle's good, Coates is coming up, but they're not in the same bracket as Agger in my opinion.
And on the flip side of that, is Agger better than what Manchester City have got, say, for example?
Well, that's the struggle, isn't it? Do you break up Company and Lescott after they've just won the Premier League as a partnership? But then when one of them's out, you've got Savage to come in, and he's no Agger, but will Agger be happy as a third choice centre back? I'm not so sure.
Well, obviously Manchester City are the club that we're talking about maybe taking Daniel Agger from Liverpool, but it's not a done deal, and I'm sure whenever these stories come up there are other clubs that are interested. Chris Graham, what's your view on this one? Do you think Agger's going to stay? Do you think he's going to go? Do you think he's going to go to City?
I think he'll go. I think he'll go. Like you, Dan, I was quite surprised by Brendan Rodgers' quotes when he did say, and I quote, every player has a price when talking about Daniel Agger, and I think he's willing to let him go. I think Rodgers is the kind of manager who is basically, if you're not 100% with me, get lost. I think he's that kind of manager. He wants total commitment for his players, and he ain't getting it now with Agger, and I think Agger could go definitely. So, like we say, Man City top in the bet, and here we go 3-5 for him to leave, and it makes sense for me, Man City. With Mark Langdon on the show last night, he talked about his concerns about Man City's centre half pairing beyond Lescott and Company. They need a third man, a quality world-class third player in that position to cover in case one of those two are injured. And Agger fits that bill perfectly. Apparently they bid 18 million for him, but Liverpool are holding out for 22. The fact that Man City, ironically the richest club in the Premier League, have yet to sign a player this close season, surely they can afford this one. Yet to sign a player. I think this could be their first signing, and I think they can definitely up another 4 million to 22 million to suit Brendan, to suit Liverpool, and he'll be on his way at 3-5. I can't see the rest being runners here. Barcelona at 6-4, and then 25-1 Bar. For me, it's Man City. I think it's a shout at 3-5. Just up at 4 million, guys, and he's all yours.
Chris, we were talking about Liverpool yesterday with Mark Langdon, and Brendan Rodgers has let players go. He's let the likes of Maxi Rodriguez and Dirk Kuyt go, and Bellamy looks like he's going to be on his way out. And the more these players depart Liverpool, or potentially are going to go, the more I think Liverpool are going to be mid-table. What's your view on where Liverpool will finish this season?
I think they could definitely be 7th, 8th. I think that's a reasonable shot. But Brendan Rodgers is just such an I don't know the word, inspiring guy. I'd love to go for a pint with him. I wish he was my uncle. There's just something about the guy. He's just really an interesting guy. And I think if he's given time by the fans, by the board, and he could really turn this club around. It might take 2 or 3 or even 4 seasons, but just give him time. And I think, just what I said in the previous link, Dan, I think he wants players who are 100% committed to his ideals, his methodology, and if they're not, they could be out. So it could be a rough ride this coming season, but let's judge him in 3 or 4 years' time. Give him time.
The stats, incidentally, was Daniel Agger last season for Liverpool, just to throw this one in there. With Daniel Agger in the starting lineup, Liverpool won 45% of their games. Without him in the starting lineup, it was upped to 50%. Just thought I'd throw that one in. Let's move on to Michael Owen, who's not been given too much of a run out at Manchester United last season. He had all sorts of injury problems, and really his United career, bar the odd cameo, never really got started. A bit of a shame, but he's 32 now. What's your views on where he might go now? Because he has been released by United.
He has been released, and I'm not too sure. I don't know what no one really knows what he's thinking. He thinks he can do it at the top level, but do these clubs want to take that risk? I think where he should go is somewhere like Everton. I think they're about 10 to 1, thereabouts, for him to join them. And if they put him on a pay-as-you-play kind of contract, I don't see a problem. And he's already joined United, having played for Liverpool, so I don't think Everton would really matter.
Let's get the latest prices. Chris, how do you see this one? I think it's Stoke who top the market when it comes to Michael Owen's next club.
Yeah, they've been top of this market for 6-7 weeks since it got put up in May. We'll talk about another quote here, Dan. Basically, Michael Owen said a couple of weeks ago, if a good opportunity doesn't arise, then so be it. And to me, that means if a club, the top 8, top 10 club don't come for me, I'm retiring. That's kind of what I read beneath the text. And I think it's a worrying time for Michael Owen at the moment. We're still waiting for things to happen here, and they're just not happening at the moment. I think he's got a higher opinion where he his abilities than the clubs have. That the spell at Manchester United hasn't really done him any favours, has it? Let's be honest. Stoke here 4-7 favourites. Norwich 5-1. We know he wants to stay in Cheshire, in that area with his stables, his big horse racing operations. So it's unlikely I can see him at Norwich. Aston Villa and Everton, like Mark says, I think 10-1 Everton is a fair shout. But would Everton really want a player of his dwindling calibre, to be honest? And I'm being negative about Michael Owen, and I hate that because I think he gets outrageous stick on Twitter. I think he gets outrageous stick in the press. I read a horrible article about him today on ESPN. This guy's an England legend. Who was slagging him off back in 1998 when he scored against Argentina? Who was slagging him off that day in September 2001 when England beat Germany 5-1 and he scored a hat-trick? He's an English football legend for me. Sadly, though, his time looks like it's running out. And I think if one bookmaker out there, it's an appeal to bookmakers. If somebody wants to price up him retiring, having no club in September, I'll get involved with that, because I think this could just be the end of the road, sadly, for a great player.
Be interesting, that, wouldn't it? Because he has got so much going on off the football field. He's got all his horses and his stables, as Chris was pointing out there, and he doesn't really need it. He's only going to go to a club if he feels it's right for him. Stoke are favourites 4-7. Would he improve Stoke, do you think, or would Tony Pulis just use him as a substitute every now and then, and we'd see him again in Carling Cup action and FA Cup action? I'm sure Michael doesn't want just that. He wants to play Premier League football.
I think he'd actually play if he went to Stoke. Like they've just signed Michael Kitely, and that's a step up from the negative football, because I really rate him when he's not injured and he's back to full fitness now. But I think Owen would play, and I think he'd make a good partnership with Crouch. I think that would be one to watch if he went there. But when Owen was fit at United and he was called upon, he scored goals. You can never question his goal return.
Let's move it on to Leighton Baines, because he's another player that's been in the headlines with potentially a move. Manchester United, the one probably, we think, are going to sign Leighton Baines if he does move. Would that be a plus for United, do you think, another left-back?
I think it would, because I think Patrice Evra hasn't been at his best for a couple of years now. He made the original mistake in the Champions League final against Barca, going back about over a year now, that let Pedro in, and then we all know what happened from there. He hasn't been his consistent self. He's been found wanting at the back when he's been the senior figure there. Considering he captained United for half the season last year, he wasn't setting by example. So to have someone breathing down his neck, and with Fabio on loan at QPR, I think it will be a very good move for Man United. Very
good move if Baines goes to United. But will he go to United? Chris, what's your view on Leighton Baines? Where's he going to be playing for the 12-13 Premier League campaign?
Everton, emphatically. And I think there's a real value bet on this market, which I'll just talk to you in a minute about. Leighton Baines, Man United really the only club I've heard that are interested in him, but it's been rumbling on the last couple of months. like it has in previous summers. For me now, it's gone a bit quiet now. United have got other things in their mind. Of course, the Robin van Persie deal, which I've heard will happen in the next 72 hours. Of course, they were involved with Lucas Moura as well, who went to PSG last night. So other players on their mind. The Baines thing for me has gone a bit quiet. For that reason, I think he's staying at Everton. And I certainly wouldn't be getting involved at 1-2 Man United, because like we've got Evra. I know he's not a great couple of seasons, but he's still a quality left back, and I think United have got other priorities they need to address before the left back position. So for me, I'd be swerving this, but there is a bet you can get involved with. I've just done it in the office before I came in here. Back him at, if this is your kind of bet, back him at 1-2, be playing at Everton on September the 1st. Paddy Power are offering that at odds of 1-2. I think it's a bet. I think it should be 1-4, 1-5. You're getting 1-2. I think it's a great bet. I've bet it. I think you should too.
2's on to stay at Everton. Just a wider thought about Everton. If he did leave, how bad would that be for David Moyes, do you think? Because we always consider that his squad is relatively small, and we always know they start dreadfully. They would have to rearrange again, I guess, wouldn't they?
I don't think they'd have to rearrange too much. I think if Moyes does let Baines go, I think there'll be someone in the pipeline. I think he's too clever not to have a replacement lined up, because this could be one, if it happens, to go down to the wire.
Interesting as well, because Leighton Baines missed 5 of the last 7 matches of the 11-12 campaign, and Everton didn't lose any of them. Still, he is a quality player, as we know. We've got a final part to come. We're going to be talking Europa League qualifiers. Liverpool are in action. Of course, they take on FC Gomel. They do have a first leg league. We'll have all the betting chat with Mark and Chris after this break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the final part of the Punter, where shortly we'll be talking tennis. Andy Murray and Novak Djokovic, of course, in action in Toronto. Ahead of that, though, we're going to talk football. As promised, Liverpool in a Europa League qualifier. They take on FC Gomel. They did win the first leg. They are short price favourites to win the second leg. Mark Young of William Hill is with me in the studio. Mark, this should be a formality for Brendan Rodgers' side, you would have thought.
Don't really see them losing this game. Getting 1-0, a 1-0 result away from home it's a good result at any stage of Europe. But they'll be up for it tonight, and I expect them to win quite comfortably, to be honest. And it wouldn't surprise me as a parting gift if Agger scores the first goal. 16-1.
A passing gift, 16-1, Agger to get the first of the game potentially. That's if he plays. Just looking at the team list from the original leg, he didn't play in the original leg, but I think there was a small injury scare, wasn't there? I thought it was a bit of a mix and match side. I must admit, for the first leg, there were 1 or 2 names that I don't know too much about in and around the squad, and again, I'm not 100% certain whether Brendan Rodgers really wants his competition. I know it's silly to say, and I know that Anfield is terrific on European nights and so on, but he knows that remit number 1 is to do well in the Premier League. And this, as we know, as we've seen in the past for middle-ranking sides, as Liverpool are, this can be something of problem if they get into group stages and they've got long trips and then they're back to the Premier League on a Sunday lunchtime. It can be difficult, can't it?
Well, the example that you can use is Juventus last year. Didn't have anything with Europe, and they won the league without losing a game. So that's because they had a week off in between games where the teams where they were competing against didn't. And I think that would help Liverpool, because their squad seems to be getting smaller. And to get the players playing his way, I think they're going to need more domestic than long flights to Eastern Europe every other week. Yeah,
to far-flung places across Europe, and that seems to be the case with the Europa League, certainly. I'm sure that the fans will want to go. I don't know if Brendan Rodgers will do. Let's get some prices on this one. Chris, how are you tackling Liverpool's adventure into Europe? Is it something we can get with? Do you think they'll go far? They've got a chance to win the competition. They should win tonight, I guess.
They won tonight, but it's all about the league, isn't it, Dan? I mean, they need to improve on what was a disastrous league season last year. And, I think Rodgers definitely, his priority is top 6, top 5 even. And Europa League is a very much a side issue. This is a horrible, horrible match for Liverpool tonight. There's not many positives to come out of this at all. It's just a disgusting early season, horrible match as they play FC Gomel from Belarus. Gomel finished 3rd in the Belarusian league last season, currently 3rd in the league this year. It's a summer season, so they're playing regularly at the moment, and It's obviously an advantage over Liverpool. I don't think it's going to be entirely straightforward for Rodgers' side tonight. They'll get the job done, but it won't be easy. Gormley there at 14-1. Unlikely, let's be honest. But Liverpool here at 1-5. I wouldn't be getting involved at that price, that's for sure. I think Liverpool will take a bit of time for them to break them down. I'd be looking at bets like under 2.5, because it was tough in the first leg a couple of weeks ago. I think it'll be a tough workmanlike performance required tonight to get past under 2.5. But my bet in this one, small stakes of course, would be draw Liverpool at 4-1. I think they'll get the job done, Dan, but it won't be too easy.
Chris, when we look at teams playing at Europa League qualifiers, initially we think, well, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage, certainly if they're taking on a Belarusian side who have played, 15, 16, 17 games of their league. But I guess it sharpens them up a little bit. Do you think we can expect Liverpool to start the Premier League season running, to really hit the ground running because they've been sharpened up by a couple of competitive fixtures, whereas other teams haven't?
I think it's definitely a plus point, but I mean, let's have a look at the side first. Let's just see if it's a full-strength side. I'd be shocked if it was a totally full-strength side. So I think it's almost an irritant. If you are trying to find positives, I guess that is one of them. The fact that it might keep them pepped up for the kick-off in 9 days' time. But let's just look at the squad first and then take a chance on it then. But I think they'll get the job done tonight. But it'll be a workmanlike performance.
Mark, do you think Liverpool are live contenders for Europa League glory? It's such a difficult competition to have a bet in because we've got the teams dropping down for the Champions League, but do you think that they could go all the way? I mean, if they got through to the knockout stages, they're bound to be interested, I guess.
I think if they get that far, then they will be contenders, but there's teams like you've seen in the last few years that really want to win it. Atletico Madrid really wanted to win it, Porto really wanted to win it, even Bilbao last year really wanted to win it. So I think teams from kind of the Portuguese league or a kind of Valencia or if they're in it, Atletico Madrid, teams like that again this season. I don't think Liverpool are going to be all that good in the Europa League.
They're always towards the top end of the market, the Premier League sides, when it comes to the Europa League, but as we've seen recently, they've not done particularly well in it, although Fulham did get to the final, as I've just remembered. Let's move on from football to tennis. It's been a fantastic tennis tournament when it came to the Olympics. Obviously, Andy Murray was successful, managed to win gold. He's hot-footed it to Toronto for the Masters Series. I was sort of quite surprised that he went to play this. I know it's a very big event, he's won it before, but from the emotion of that Wimbledon win over Roger Federer and the fact that, the games were in London and he was very much part of it, I was surprised to see him go over to Canada.
I'm surprised that he's gone there because I don't think he really needs to. Like, if you look at the top players at the moment, they don't play every tournament that they can. They play the tournaments that are right for them. But if he's getting his training going ready for the US Open, I think fair play to him for going over there.
Are you a Murray fan? Because obviously when it comes to a betting point of view, he's let punters down when it comes to Grand Slam finals. Hopefully there were one or two that backed him for the Olympic gold. Have you been with him or against him, either personally or from a bookmaker's point of view over the last few years?
Well, with the Olympics, we upped his price the morning of the Saturday morning of the Olympics starting. So if people were on that, it was obviously a bad result, but personally I find him extremely frustrating to watch and I'll back against him all day long, to be honest. I prefer watching other players, and I don't like this idea that just because he's British I should like him. Like, I like Nadal because I like watching him play. I like Federer because I like watching him play, but Murray frustrates me.
Murray frustrates Mark. Chris, does he frustrate you?
No, I love the guy deeply. He doesn't frustrate me at all. What perplexes me is this constant negativity about the guy in this country. It's amazing. I mean, he's one of the greatest sportsmen this Great Britain has ever produced, but still, there's so many haters having a go at him, having a pop at him, taking him on. What does he need today to convince people that he's one of the all-time greats? Win a Grand Slam, then shut them up, Andy. Let's hope it's early September at the US Open, and I'll be the first man there applauding him and sticking it right up those people who've been having a pop at him for the last 7 years. Anyway.
Rant's over. Chris, do you think he's going to slip up in the third round Toronto Masters?
I think it's a backable price, isn't it? 8-13. It's a decent price. We're going to look at Djokovic after this, who's far shorter. 8-13 here. A lot of emotions going through the great man at the moment after winning gold and convincing a section of British society that is actually a decent human being. Still a long way to go there, though, as we discussed. 8 to 13. I think it's a backable price. I'd be getting involved. The negatives are Milos Raonic, 8 to 5, playing in his home country here. Big Canadian, patriotic crowd behind him. This is one of his big tournaments of the year. Murray, of course, thinking about US Open. Very tired, of course, for the Olympics as well. So there's definitely reasons why Raonic could beat him. But when you're getting a player of Murray's quality, 8 to 13, in a competition he's won twice already, and his preferred hard court, this is the time of the season where he really does peak here. You just have to get involved. A very tasty, gorgeous 8 to 13.
8 to 13 about Murray. Can you see him slipping up against Raonic in that third round clash?
I don't see him slipping up, to be honest. He is a quality player, there's no doubt about it, but he does live in a generation where we've got 3 of the best that have ever played the game playing. And with Nadal, Federer and Djokovic all guns blazing for the US Open, I don't really see him having much of a chance there, although another final appearance could happen. But I don't see him slipping up today. Maybe go 3 sets, but I don't see him slipping up.
You mentioned Djokovic, who's also a former winner in Toronto. He's also in action. Can we have a Murray-Djokovic double, do you think, Chris, here? Do we see Novak Djokovic putting in a below-par performance like he did at the Olympics?
Far too short for me, Dan, here. Far too short. 1 to 10, no thanks. No thanks. 1 to 10, too short. How can we get him beat here? Sam Querrey, 17 to 2. How can we get him beat? I'll tell you how we can get beat. This guy, Querrey's in decent form at the moment. Semi-finalist in Washington a couple of weeks ago. Then he got to a final competition in LA. Sorry, he won the competition in LA. So in real good form, a good hard court player. Back in the top 35 in the rankings again. Very much in good form at the moment. And for me, he's far too big here at 17 to 2. It's a bet to nothing, isn't it? It's a huge price. And I'd much rather back that at 17 to 2 than Djokovic at 1 to 10. Querrey has the potential to take down the Serb.
Be interesting to see, because Djokovic has been a little bit under par. Obviously, he's not the world number 1 anymore. Roger Federer went back to the top of the rankings. He's 10s on. I mean, you could have a bit of fun and maybe back Querrey. You could maybe back him to even win the first set. Have you got any opinion on that one, Mark?
Again, I agree. There's absolutely no value backing Djokovic in this. It's like all of them, again, Djokovic, Federer and Nadal in early rounds of smaller tournaments. You don't want to touch them, and it's worth taking them on. I agree. Kerry's got the potential to be a really good player in future years, and I think he could upset the apple cart today.
Just while we've got you on talking about tennis, when it comes to the US Open, obviously people are going to be looking once again to Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, who maybe is a slight injury mark against him, and of course Andy Murray. I mean, could Andy Murray win the US Open? Everyone talks that will be his best surface, his best chance. Do you go along with it?
I think it's his best chance, definitely, but it's getting past the other players, and he beat Federer the other day in a 5-setter, but it's playing 2 weeks solid 5-setters, and I think once he needs to turn something off in his head that makes him fail at Grand Slams. Yeah,
it'd be interesting. I mean, there's plenty that will hope that Andy Murray can win that Grand Slam. It would be fantastic if he could follow up Olympic success, and you never know. BBC Sports Personality of the Year odds might just be tweaked if he can manage success at Flushing Meadows in a couple of months' time, weeks' time as it stands at the moment, and certainly next month. That's the US Open. That's all we've got time for when it comes to the Punter today. Many thanks to Chris Graham and indeed Mark Young of William Hill, who's joined me in the studio over the course of the last hour. And to everyone who's watched, we'll do it all again, of course, same time, same place tomorrow. We'll see you then.